Hello, everybody. We're going to be talking about Final Destination today. It came out in the year 2000. I'm joined by Jacob once again and special guest Justin from the Style is Substance YouTube channel. And I fear we're going to be doing a lot of talking over each other, but I'm just going to get this out of the way really quick about Final Destination. I'm going to be approaching this movie from the lens of I think it's just hyper literally about survivor's guilt, if anything. And I think it's a pretty important movie to come out in the year 2000 after the Columbine killings and after a lot of kind of growing violence like that. That was kind of reflected in Kevin Williamson's bigger slasher movies. And I think that Final Destination does a really good job of showing that kind of PTSD, survivor's guilt, and the self-destructive behaviors that kids were going through and adults to a certain extent. But they definitely made the weird premonition or mistake of using an airplane for that, because this came out pretty close to 2001. And of course, this film is highlighted. We're actually going to go kill by kill on here. So like we can start with the opening scene. You guys can make opening remarks too. We're just going to be like casual and have a good conversation, mostly fun about it, but hopefully provide a little bit of insight as well. But yeah, this film is highlighted by a plane crash, by like a random, just miserable, sad act that happened, I guess. Event, not act, but yeah, say hello so they know who you are.
That I'm alive? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Justin, say
Trust
hello.
me, I'm here with Jacob and Justin. Trust me.
Hi.
Justin.
How's it going?
Okay. All right. So we open this movie with the plane crash sequence, and we get to meet all of our characters, all of our lovely archetypes, and we could talk about a few of the characters that don't die. First off, I do love Devon Sawa. He's a great little relic of the early 2000s. This is Stan right here. This is Idle Hands and SLC Punk. It's a heartthrob of the 90s right here. I love Devon Sawa. It's really cool seeing him here.
I don't remember. He's one of those actors that looks familiar to me, but I can't remember where I know him from.
Yeah, me too.
It's got to be Stan. It's got to be that Stan music video.
I'm trying to think of who he reminds me of. It's someone Justin was talking to me about recently, actually.
So he was. Oh, okay, Stan. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh no, he looks like Topher Grace to me. That's what he looks like.
I love Topher Grace is the best actor in the world. But no,
he looks like
he played an
no, he looks like Topher Grace if you're the only way he looks like Topher Grace is if you're doing like a Chad meme and he's the Chad version.
He looks like Topher Grace playing Eminem. No.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's actually pretty good. But this is
he is
pretty
good.
Pretty decent performance from him. We also get I did write this down as a note. We also get Ali Larter here playing Clear Rivers, which is a terrible name for anybody in the world.
Clear Rivers.
And her introduction to me is just like this walking red flag. I think I've only dated girls like this who just read Tropic of Cancer like in public, like some weird like loner character, like just like welds art pieces together. Like this is the walking red flag if I ever saw one. This seriously, a Tropic of Cancer bit that was a was a bit much. Just reading Henry Miller and like being able to. She's the only person in the class too who understands any French, from what I can.
Yes, she is. That actually leads to one of my favorite jokes in the movie, which is, this is getting ahead, but when they're in the car, like barely down the road, and who's the actor? I think it's Sean William Scott just says, "I hated French the whole time," or something. He's like, "I always hated French."
That was actually pretty good.
It was. That whole sequence was funny.
My favorite character is Carter.
Yeah. He tried running the guy
amazing.
over.
Which one was Carter?
Yes, he did. He was the asshole.
Yes. No, he's great. He's great.
Of course, I have to do my due diligence and mention that Kerr Smith is one of the stars of Dawson's Creek. Lovely seeing an alum here. And Ali Larter was a guest star on Dawson's Creek as well. So, like, Williamson is still here in the pudding. But Kerr Smith, as opposed to Jack McPhee on Dawson's Creek, plays just, like, almost until, like, his final scenes, like, a one-note, like, fucking asshole, but I love his lines.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Parker a little bit from Urban Legend, and the idea that like the teacher speaks French, and like Kerr Smith's character is just so like, what the fuck is he doing? What the fuck is this? Like, you're on a French field trip, Carter. Like, he's speaking French. But of course, we all have opening kills in horror movies, and this one is like pretty hardcore. I remember growing up with this movie and not really remembering that the plane crash sequence
It's really
is
visceral. Like,
yeah, it's a bit much. Oh, incredibly visceral when the flames actually hit Alex's face and like boil.
Oh
You can
yeah,
see
the
the
effects are
skin
actually
falling
really
off
good
his
at that.
face.
It looks
Mhm.
really good, especially for like 2000. It looks really, really fucking good when they peel his skin off. Like, this was a weird sentence to
yeah.
say, but it looks really like really good. That whole sequence. I think it's because a lot of it's because of short shots where they just do
Yeah.
like they show something like a chair
Briefly.
or a
Yeah.
body flying out the window really fast, and so like just enough for you to register what happened, but not enough that they had to pour like large quantities of money into it. So it just looks really good, that whole sequence.
Yeah.
But it's also a plane crash. But like it's brutal to watch.
Well, I feel like that was kind of a common thing, like in films right before 9/11.
Same.
I mean,
It was this thing of like ramping up how gratuitous your violence was to something like
Oh, I'm
completely
talking like
not okay.
pre-death, like before
Oh.
death. The part that has been censored out of this movie.
Yeah,
like
the dream, right?
No, it foreshadows his death. No, it's not even the dream. It's
yeah,
just
yeah. It wasn't in the cut that I saw, but go on, Zach.
it's just a little hand motion he makes. Remember when those two cute girls, like Todd's got this weird scheme to sit next to one of them and like get them into some sexual situation because he's a high school teenager in the year 2000, and they go over to Devon Sawa and they're like, "Hey, can we sit here?" Todd's being weird and says he won't move. And he looks over at Todd, and Todd's like, he puts like his finger across his throat, like, "Don't you dare say you will." And then, in original version, that was around for like a decade, he acts like he has a noose around his neck, and he's like, "I'll kill you if you do. Like, you're killing me over here, man." And that brief second,
Yeah,
that gesture is
that
gone.
flew over my head. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, it wasn't in the cut that I saw because apparently they cut it, or at least Netflix cut it or something, right, Zach?
Yeah, but it's I think it's on my Amazon cut, but even then, like, we were talking about like a half-second gesture.
Oh, no, I definitely saw that. I picked up a old DVD from my library,
Yeah.
so yeah, that happens.
What's curious is, like, we'll get to his death, but for some reason the gesture is they think is more problematic than like what his death actually looks like and what his death actually, the feelings that evokes. Like,
oh no, because that was by far the most upsetting for me of all the deaths.
Yeah, because he was a good character.
Yeah, he just gets off, and like you see like his eyes turn red and like his throat like getting all squeezed, and yeah,
it's a really brutal shot when his eyes just like you hear like the snap when they bloodshot. It's bad.
And if there's any death that really pushes, like, I think that each character deals with it, like, deals with this traumatic event and like the way that they're processing their emotions in, like, stereotypical ways, but like honest ways, I guess. And that one definitely drives the suicide metaphor home for sure. I know that narrative wise, it looks like he makes a decision not to kill himself, and obviously death is just hunting them down, but like metaphorically, that's hanging yourself in your bathroom after your brother's funeral.
Didn't his parents or somebody say that like he killed himself?
Yeah, they presume he did.
Yeah, they even said that.
It's because. Or go ahead.
Oh no, I just said I thought that was a pretty clever. The conceit in most slasher movies that no one believes the main character. In our case, a final boy, and like this one was a pretty clever way of making no one believe him.
I did think it was kind of weird that it, because the idea, the concept of the film is of course that like the universe tries to find a way to kill them anyway, but that's the one death, I think it's the only death where it's like it implies a literal will for death because the liquid that kills him disappears. So Like that, it could have been an accident anyway. Like if like the liquid on the ground that made him slip and fall in the bathtub and hang himself, that could have happened anyway, and there would have been no other explanation. But the liquid recedes back into the toilet. It's this weird. It's like the one overtly supernatural element in the film. I mean, like it's a supernatural film, but like
Well, there's supernatural stuff here and there, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think it had to be that on the nose because it was your first death, so you have to like for the dimmest
Yeah.
audience member, like yes, this is sentient liquid. You know, like yes,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
not a natural thing. You know, we're showing like the weird black atmosphere that like flies
I
by
actually
each character.
really, really liked that. I really dug that. Mostly because it never like. I was worried that was going to become like a thing at the end of the movie, like that. Like Devon Sawa has to fight a giant like dark mist in the sky, and I was like, "Are we going to do that?" I'm glad it's just
No,
throughout the
it's
movie.
it's more subtle in that respect. It's just kind of, and for a while I thought it was going to be that guy that they saw in the autopsy room.
Oh, Tony Todd,
Um,
the best
yeah,
character in
yeah.
the movie.
Yep.
Yeah, for a brief moment, I thought that he was like going to be like the villain, but I kind of liked how in the end it's like it's just them up against fate or like predeterminism versus free will. I love that about it.
I love that scene with Tony Todd. It's so
Oh
good.
no, I do. That's the next point we hit. We'll dive deeper into Justin's
Yeah, yeah,
predeterminism soon. Right after I say it, it's lovely seeing Candyman anywhere.
yeah,
But I can see where Jacob's coming from too, especially when he says, "And then you'll have to deal with the Grim Reaper, and you don't want to fuck with that bad."
yeah.
Whatever. And
Well,
it's like,
that's
okay, maybe Jacob's right, and he'll end up fighting this giant black, vague Grim Reaper thing. But no, obviously,
also Tony Todd's just like inherently charismatic as all hell. But
he
no,
really is.
I really thought it was going to go down that route. I guess because I think that was more a thing of the times where it's you have your central conceit, but then you reach a point where you don't know how to reach a conclusion
Yeah, that's the
without.
problem I have with some horror films and definitely with comedy films, where it's like the third act is kind of like lackluster um and I think it made the right choice in the end by not doing that. In fact, his inclusion was kind of like almost like a red. I mean, it's exposition, but it's also like a red herring.
Yeah, I just think it was exposition, but deliberately trying to be as cryptic as you can be.
Yes,
Tony Todd
yes.
made that scene work. It couldn't. I don't think it could have worked with anyone who wasn't like a Tony Todd or a fucking like Robert Englund. Like it had to be like
Yeah,
a huge presence for that scene. Okay, I'm not saying Robert Englund would have been amazing in that role. I'm just saying it had to
Yeah.
be someone who had a built-in persona already.
yeah, horror canon. Yeah, part of the horror canon. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I do really like that scene. That's some awesome shit. But I think now is as good a time as any to bring up the birth of Final Destination, I guess, created by Jeffrey Reddick for a spec script, an unused script for the television show The X-Files. And I've not read the original X-Files script, but I do think it's interesting that Alex is being hounded by two FBI agents, one of which is far more skeptical than the other. And it does to me like here's the thing, I like the concept a lot, but what makes this movie work for me is that it is like in the Williamson school of slasher movies. Like it's a teen movie with this concept in it. I think the original script at least was just it was an X-Files script. It wasn't really commenting on like teen PTSD or survivor's guilt, probably survivor's guilt, but not for teenagers. But that's where the birth of this script was, and I think there's a little bit of TV elements. There's that one scene where
yeah.
Alex is being interrogated for standing outside of Mrs. Luton's house, and that is a total like Mulder and Scully scene of like I was afraid because I was kind of believing him. You know what? You give me the creeps. Like okay, you just copy and paste. All right. But it is a decent concept, not taking anything away from Jeffrey Reddick. Just what interests me the most about it is what it seems to be saying about how the teenagers were going through a lot at the time and handled it in various amounts of self-destructive ways. But we can't go to Mrs. Luton yet because we have to talk about Terry. There's really nothing to say about Terry except that she's Carter's girlfriend.
Oh yeah, Terry.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I'll say like the first death was the one that fucked me up the most, but Terry's was the one that shocked me the most. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I'm sure I've seen it somewhere
I feel
on
like I
Twitter
saw that scene
before.
before. Yeah, I
I'm
saw that
sure it
scene
showed up
before.
on. Yeah, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
been like used as a joke
I think I saw that
elsewhere.
in like a compilation video on YouTube one time, like funniest or like most random unexpected deaths, and it's
If
like I saw it coming like intuitively, but then I was still surprised, like oh yeah, okay.
if I saw it, I blocked it out because I did not see it, and in a way, it's almost the most brutal, just because she literally didn't have a chance. It's just
And it's her
brutal.
first moment of characterization too, and I
That's
love
the
it because,
thing.
like,
That's the thing.
out of every, oh, and let me just bring this up really quick before I forget. So, like, to set the scene, Alex and Clear are like talking at a table outside a cafe, and of course Carter drives by after like repeatedly trying to murder Sean William Scott.
Or scare him. Like,
Like, I'm calling it straight up attempted murder every time he sees him. But he's listening to some. They dug up the song. I don't know what song it is, but he pulls
It's
up and it's Carter looking like a badass, and the lyrics
it's
are,
Nine Inch Nails.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's
Because,
Nine Inch Nails. I forget which track, but it's from their first album.
but it's I'm on my way to a final destination.
Yeah,
It's like fuck
I
yeah.
try to find myself, but myself keeps slipping away. That's the.
and
But
he's
Carter's a really good character. I love him coming up there like, oh, looks like it's a family reunion. Miss Luton has to move away because you're a fucking weirdo, you warlock. He calls him a warlock. Like, but yeah, Terry has that good moment of characterization. Like, if each character is dealing with their pain in different ways, like Todd, obviously, I mean, his brother died, and his brother was like the more attractive and successful version of him, you know? So I'm sure there was a bit, yeah, at least that's implied for me personally. And that's a suicidal way of handling things. Terry just wanted to fucking move on, distance
yeah.
herself from this, which is an interesting perspective too. But of course, she says, like, if you're not willing to move on, then you can all just drop fucking dead, and then
And she
steps
just
in front of a
instantly
bus.
dies. God, it's really brutal, and it's um it's
It's so
the
sudden.
the departed thing where you just like cap a character with no warning, and it almost feels more brutal than something more gratuitous, at least for
Yeah,
Well,
me.
well, two
because
things
it's so
really quick
quick and
too. Like, I love just so I don't forget this character moment later, because I might. I do love that it compels Carter to like um, that the monument, the memorial monument of all the kids who died on the airplane crash,
Oh
and he goes
yes,
and
yes.
tries to carve her name into it too. Like, she deserves to be here. Like, that's an unexpectedly human moment from him. Of course, on his way to the memorial, he once again tries to, I repeat, murder Sean William Scott with his car, because I just want to point this out. But there's something else about Terry I wanted to say, but I kind of forget.
That's okay.
I might circle back to it, but it's a good. Oh, it was the foreshadowing, how he saw the bus in the reflection of the window, and like I really don't like that they censored out that like one part of the movie, because it's all about foreshadowing upcoming deaths and stuff like that. Like the
Mm.
bus,
it's
it works. I mean, it was deliberate. It
extremely
wasn't.
self-referential. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll go into. We'll,
Oh yeah.
we'll go into some of Jacob's thoughts in a minute or two, after we have ourselves a really hearty laugh, because Mrs. Luton is next, everybody, and
I, so with
That's so ridiculous.
the thing about this death
Uh,
is that it happened. I got to the end, and I got to the part where um Alex is leaving the scene, and I paused it to go to the bathroom, and I was about to go back. I thought, oh, this is not going to go fucking well from here. This is just going to get so much worse for Alex after this.
it's like
But
one
the
thing
death itself,
after another.
it's a fucking
It's,
Three Stooges bit. It's amazing. I found a video earlier where they put the Wii Home music over it. It's just
oh,
no
fucking funny.
way. That's
It's
great.
just fucking funny. It's insane. It's because it escalates so fucking fast. Like the first death is like really depressing and
and
sad
gruesome. This and the
and
second one's
gruesome.
sudden. Like
And then you
bam.
just get this fucking Tom and Jerry skit of this lady dying in the most over the top way.
And I would say that this lady is handling her grief by by alcohol and by uprooting herself by
Well,
leaving.
it's like a slow build up, and suddenly it's just like one thing after another after another. It's like so fast. Like what is happening? And then the house
For posterity.
explodes.
Yeah, for
I do really
posterity, I'll
like-
run through it really quick. For posterity,
Yeah, okay.
She pours herself some straight up fucking vodka into this mug that she seems to think is cursed for no reason, but she was right because it cracks. And she carries it across the floor, and it's just leaking vodka. And we all know that vodka is the most flammable thing on the earth. And she like leans over her computer. Vodka falls inside the computer, makes it explode. She gets a shard of the computer, the glass from the screen, into her neck, and she just starts spurting blood everywhere. And that's cool because the sparks from the computer light a fire that like sends her into the kitchen where she falls down. And this is my favorite part, when she's like reaching for a rag to hold to her throat. And she pulls it, and then this butcher knife just falls out of this knife holder directly into her chest. But that's not all, folks, because of the fucking oven or something else blows up because of the fire, making one of the chairs fall down and slams the knife further into her chest, killing her. And then the house explodes.
Well, and Alex comes in at like the last moment, and it like
and then just holds the knife standing over her. And I was like, these are Columbine vibes.
So when that happened, I was remembering the part earlier at the funeral for the victims of the plane crash where they take a picture of him.
I wanted to talk about that more.
Yeah, someone takes a picture of him getting the rose from her, and I thought like the same guy or someone was gonna be right outside the window taking a picture of him holding the knife.
Yeah,
like I viscerally thought that was gonna happen.
I thought it was gonna happen too.
There are some straight up funny fucking moments to this death, though.
I think the film's kind of a comedy. I think. It's kind of all over the place in that respect.
Sort of.
The sequels really lose themselves in this Rube Goldberg machine-like thing, but this is definitely like a sequel-worthy death, like the marbles going down the little maze, basically. But there are some funny moments too leading up to it of her talking on the phone saying, like, "I'm telling you, I get the creeps just looking out my window scares me," and it's just Devon Sawa standing under a tree. Like, oh shit. But I did want to talk about the memorial scene because I forgot it has some of my favorite moments from these characters and how they're like immediately, I mean, I guess it sets the tone for how they all handle this situation. Like Sean William Scott is kind of just dorky and innocent.
He's like,
whatever.
It's timid. And the thing is, I actually saw American Pie not that long ago for the first time. It's interesting to see both of these roles because it's almost like against like his typecast. Yeah.
Absolutely. He starts asking him like, "Hey, the guy, my driving instructor told me I was going to die at a very young age. Is that true? Is this true? Is that true?" But nothing compares to Carter. Like, I love how many times he insists to camera almost, "I'm never going to fucking die." Like, it's awesome. It is so cool. I love those moments in slasher movies, and he does it repeatedly. That's like his.
And to be fair, he's technically right.
He's the next step, right? Yeah.
He plays directly into that what Justin was talking about, that predeterminism versus fate.
Well, yeah, so that's one of my favorite parts because he was basically like, I get to control my destiny or I control my fate. So like you decide to like group suicide.
Oh, he's Turning Point USA quality.
And then at the last moment he's like, "Oh no, I can't do this. It's like this isn't right. Like I'm not gonna commit suicide." But then like the car locks, and then suddenly that becomes his new destiny.
Oh God, I think that is next. I mean, we're gonna circle around there. Yeah, Carter handles this by being completely self-destructive and like violent and like outwardly cruel to people, lashing out on people, and I've seen this happen in our real lives.
Oh.
It's fine. It's not fine, but it's like an understandable reaction to trauma, especially since his girlfriend just died too.
Yeah. He doesn't want to sit around waiting for something to happen. He wants to be in control of like when he dies.
We can also categorize this analysis by the amount of times Kerr Smith's character wants to murder Sean William Scott for existing. In
to
the
be
car.
Fair, who among us doesn't?
You're kind of right. I was living.
Yeah, but he's nice in this movie though. He's nice.
Can I point out that Sean William Scott's character is called Billy Hitchcock, and
I was
love that
actually
there's
just
a
about to
character.
bring it up.
There's a kid named
Oh,
Hitchcock who gets bullied the
well,
entire
No, this is
time.
literally every character in the movie.
Blake Dreyer is Carl Theodore Dreyer. Then there's Agent
Alex's
Track.
last name is Browning. Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
like
Todd
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 Browning.
Browning.
Browning. There's
Todd
Murnau,
Wagner, and Wagner is the guy that made the Wolfman.
Wait, yeah, go.
Murnau. There's F.W. Murnau. There's Larry Murnau.
There's Terry Chaney.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are like they're all named after horror directors and actors. It's great. There's Alex Browning.
I think all the characters are.
There's Todd Wagner. It's a mix of George Wagner and Todd Browning, and there's actually a George Wagner. There's Val Lewton. It's
Who's Carter? What's Carter's last name, guys?
Horton. I don't know who that's a reference to. I'm sure it's
I don't know.
somebody.
I think he hears a who, right, guys? Am I right, you guys?
God.
Am I right, guys?
I'm leaving the call.
It's what come to me for these good references. But, okay, Carter is in the car, and Sean William Scott is being a little bitch, telling him, "Hey, wear your seatbelt, man. Go the speed limit, man." But Carter tells him, "You know what? I think you're next, because if you don't shut the fuck up, I'll kill you myself." And that's pretty terrible that he said that.
Isn't that when he goes like, "Hey, come on, man! Don't say that, man."
Yeah, he does.
He literally responds like that. It's so funny. I really love Sean William Scott in this movie.
Billy told the cops that you were running away from her house that was exploding. By the way, sus as fuck. I don't know why he didn't stop and let Billy know what the fuck was going on, because Billy's directly involved. He drew a map. Like, Billy was coming up on that list. I don't know why he didn't just tell Billy, but whatever. I guess because Billy's an idiot. Yeah, Billy's just handling this situation. I mean, Billy's dumb. I don't know how he's handling this situation. How would you guys say?
I mean, he's just treating it like Sean William Scott would, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's just... Oh, man. But I love... Yeah.
He's treating it like someone who acts like that would. He's just like... He doesn't seem to process the severity of it for like anyone else. He's just... I don't know, maybe it's because he's not like... His character isn't like... I don't know, conscious enough of other people's emotions. He seems to live in his like own little world. Like, it's this weird thing where he's like, he's very clearly traumatized by the event, but like also not fully like cognizant of how severe it was in a weird way.
I think he's handling it probably the most selfishly, because even Miss Luton was like killing herself over this the teacher that she told to go back on the plane because he knew French better.
Yeah.
You know, like Sean William Scott was literally not worried about anything except for him and hoping he doesn't die and hoping that one girl says yes to go into the prom.
Well, he's just in his own little world, but I kind of like that character because he's almost like he's nice. He's just kind of like this little dork, but he's also sort of like solipsistic in a way. Like
it's the scene at the funeral where he's like, they're literally at like a funeral for 39 dead children, and he's like, like, my driving instructor told me I'm gonna die. Is that true? And he's like, he does not get it. He does not like understand the situation he's in, or like
I love that part.
It's my favorite part. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like it really like where his whole character clicked for me. He just like completely clueless to like what
that's
Alex
literally his entire character. The reason he doesn't get on the flight is because the bathroom door was locked and he was late getting on, and he just got caught up in the commotion pushing him off the plane, confused about why this was even happening.
That's what it was. I was trying to remember how he ended up off the plane.
Yeah,
he locks himself in a goddamn bathroom because he's an idiot. And Carter gets kicked off because, what a problem, I'm gonna punch the problem. Like, oh man, but
and
Carter
Terry's
is
just trying to keep him down. Yeah,
I do love that scene of him driving like a maniac to prove that like he is the master, like he's in charge of his own life, that he has a power that
Well, that's when I felt like the thesis of the film really kind of started to shine, because it's like do we have control of our own destiny or not, and like can we kind of cheat death in a way? But the answer is no, we can't. Like even if like we can't even if we have control, ultimately there are greater things at play that are in control. But then Alex does save him, so it's almost like I can cheat death and just nobody else can. But it's not just about death and life. It's also, like I said earlier, free will and predeterminism. And that's kind of what I liked about it.
It is this thing of like his attempts to circumvent fate are playing into it entirely, and if he had
Yes.
not done that in the first place, he would have been fine.
Well, yeah, and that kind of comes up with the whole paradox there. That, like, is it free will or is it not? Like, because he's just reinforcing it.
I also love that whole sequence because for me it marked like the shift from like the first half of the movie, which was pretty like serious and like sincere with its
Dramatic,
treatment
and
of like death, and then the second half, which is where just within 5 minutes you have a decapitation and it just umps the ante from there. It just chaos. Although, well, actually, I guess that happened with the teacher's death, but
well, that was a little bit in between. I mean, it's so ridiculous and over the top, but at the same time, like it is still like kind of gruesome in a way.
but a
But
taste of what is to come.
yes,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I think it's like I'm not going to call it a Williamson clone, but there are certain similarities, and Williamson seemed to
Yeah,
handle
it
more
re-
like serious
right.
situations with a certain amount of not just maturity, but like understanding of what he's talking about. Like
Well,
this one as well is like kind of trivializing PTSD too, like
It
gamifying it for
is.
sure.
It
This film
is.
gamifies
Yeah.
PTSD.
well, this is what I was talking about before that you like was more or less that like when you have a Williamson script, necessarily by the end they're still like is taking like Nev Campbell still takes the deaths seriously. Like she lives in a fucking cartoon and Scream, but like the deaths still matter. Like there's still people she knows and cares about dying. At the end of this movie, Alex just like goes off the fucking deep end, and like Sean William Scott gets decapitated right in front of him, and he's like, "I get it, the puzzle, I get it." Like he's just like completely lost. He
That,
realizes he's in a movie and he just like completely gets lost in trying to link
Yeah.
the causal
and
chain of all these things happening.
and like I wouldn't call that like more postmodern than Williamson. I would call that like the gamification, right? Because it's like it's no longer
Oh.
about how do we survive; it's how do we beat the game.
It's
You
I
know?
would say it's
Well,
more I would say it's more postmodern in the
it's
sense
still
that that's like
postmodern.
yeah, I would say it is in the sense
Like,
that like that's the natural endpoint is that you realize like these things are just
well, would
you
you
don't know how to
argue?
ascribe meaning.
Well, would you argue that it just becomes metatextual? Like that's kind of Alex's place in the story, where it's almost like he's like he. You said that he realizes he's in the movie more or less,
I
right?
mean it in the sense that like he
Sort
reaches a
of.
point where he's like, how
Mhm.
can I take this seriously? Or like how can I like how can I place value on these things when it's completely chaos? It's complete like madness. He doesn't know how to ascribe meaning to these deaths anymore because they're all part of a bigger framework. And so that's why I think it's the natural endpoint of something like Scream, which is why I said I think it's like the natural endpoint of this era of horror before like the 2000s post 9/11 movies because like
Well,
like once you take Scream to its natural conclusion it's like Nev Campbell like laughing at people dying because like how do I take that seriously anymore? I live in a cartoon. And that's what I think Alex realizes by the end of this movie, and that's why he just becomes just wild to watch and I love it. But
Right. I just don't think that's the. I think that's exactly what happened, and that you're definitely
yeah.
right in your analysis. I just don't think it's like the natural conclusion of Scream.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean more like that's where a
it
character would end up in like a Scream situation. I feel like most people would like end up in that situation, which is very
yeah,
different from like how Williamson or Wes Craven conceive of the
yeah.
situation. Like they try to
yeah,
ascribe some meaning to what happened, and they believe that Nev Campbell's suffering is worth something, and like she's able to
yeah.
overcome it. Whereas like these guys are like, no, you see the shit happen, and you go off the deep end, and you're
Well,
not able to like process
as we've
it.
discussed before, what makes Williamson such an interesting postmodernist is that he does go directly to the new sincerity, like every time, every single time. It ends sincerely. It's a sincere movie.
Yeah, it's
I
interesting.
think that Final Destination's a pretty insincere movie. I like it. It's
Well,
just
that's what I like about it. Like honestly, I mean, like actually, I mean, I would have to rewatch Scream to really solidify an opinion on that. But the my takeaway from initially watching I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream is that I wasn't really actually all that big on the third act. I thought it kind of suffered. Um, because it becomes like maybe too sincere, whereas like before that, I don't know. I think like becoming more and more insincere. I like that more. I think it's like
yeah, I just think it's so important to have your main character give a fuck about her dead friends. Like, I think that's incredibly
well,
important.
Yeah.
probably.
I guess when I say like it was inevitable, I don't necessarily like ascribe like good or bad to that, like it's a good thing or a
Right.
bad thing. I just think
Mhm.
like movies were going to go down that route no matter what.
They
Like
were.
that's just
Yeah.
the route we were going, and
Well,
it
especially
happened.
yeah, especially after like 9/11.
9/11,
something
Columbine, yeah.
something
Yeah.
had to pave the way for the Eli Roths, Rob Zombies, and James Wans of the world, who would pop up
Yeah.
like like 2002 was Cabin Fever, so like we're right at the return, or like
That's
on
why
the doorstep.
that's why I think like even if so many like real world atrocities and things that happened during that point time between like late 90s to early 2000s, even if they didn't happen, I almost feel like these films would have happened anyway. Like that shift in film, just because it's like it was a period of like how can you escalate it further, and you escalate it further and it just becomes
Well,
devil's
I had
rejects.
by the time this video goes up, I will have had like a wrong turn critique, which came out the same year as House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
that.
it's like, to me, it's like far more escapist, because I think that these teen movies deal with actual like problems as opposed to
Yes.
maniac clowns and like the classicist hillbilly extras or whatever.
Yes.
I and it becomes kind of, maybe it's like sincere to genre, sincere to form, but it's insincere about actually trying to say something. To me personally, that's personally speaking. I know there's a lot
Well,
of zombie fans. I'm a huge James Wan fan, but I don't think he said a lot till later.
Yeah, yeah.
But Final Destination. Uh, Justin and I were talking about this. I've said on the channel a few times that it feels like movies like Scream and The Faculty, like we're a bit too on the nose, like almost like
well,
premonitory, like it predicted Columbine.
yeah,
And Justin and I were talking earlier.
yeah. So we were talking earlier, but I want to emphasize I'm not actually saying that it is predicting 9/11. It's just that some movies around this time came eerily close. I mean, The Matrix, you have a helicopter like get its blades like inside of like the building and it creates like this wormhole. You also have I mean Final Destination, of course, obviously with the
How Donnie
plane.
Darko with the
Donnie
fucking
Darko,
plane
like,
engine.
and
I
then
actually really thought this was going to end with Donnie Darko. Like
yes,
they undo everything, but Alex has to
yeah,
die. I really
yeah,
thought it was
Right.
going to do that.
but it didn't. Fight Club also. I mean, you have that plane scene too that's similar to Final Destination briefly, and then afterwards you have it ends with the buildings being blown up. Everything was like pointing towards it. I don't know. And then of course, yeah, it's just like that's the culture that was like we were shaping
Yeah.
basically, and then in a post 9/11 society, we kind of had to like rebuild and reconstruct like how the horror film should be. I mean, we took out
Oh,
after, yeah,
yeah. And I'm mostly, when I say like insincere, I think like some of the torture porn movies were a bit sincere in like
well,
what they were
yeah,
trying to say. But like I'm talking more about the immediate return, like Cabin Fever,
yes,
House of a Thousand
yes,
Corpses,
yeah,
Wrong
yeah,
Turn,
yeah,
as
right.
opposed to the follow-up films from those
You could
people.
you could say that they took a wrong turn.
That's what I say in the video because I'm so good. But
Judging by the rules of how this goes, now it's my turn to work a pun in at some point.
I think so. But I wanted to say one more thing. I think Jacob is fucking on point. I think that Scream offered two different avenues, but one avenue actually takes like talent and thought. Like you can
Yeah,
actually either let the trope take over, or like the character, like the new identity take over. Because Sydney is like the
right.
hero at the end of each
Uh,
movie, and to
Where
me,
it's
this is
not
tropes taking over for sure.
where it's
in
not
a
just
weird,
de it's
I
not
don't
just
know.
deconstruction. It's like also reconstruction in a way, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I don't know. I think in a weird way, Alex does obtain power in his powerlessness. It's weird.
Yeah,
He's like a
but
real.
Well, yes, but you also have to consider the very ending where they're discussing predeterminism versus free will. There's
Oh, where
almost
it
like,
just like keeps
yeah,
happening
it was like, well,
anyway.
this may actually just be fate. Like you can't say that you actually like took control of fate. Maybe this is what was destined all along.
Yeah. I don't know. I find something interesting, I guess, in Alex and like his complete like
Well,
dissociation from what happens to the people around him.
well,
And he
right,
Mhm.
right,
Well,
because
he's
like
almost forced to because he's forced to gamify it. He's forced
exactly.
to make a list.
I guess that's what I find interesting. Yeah, and again, I'm thinking of him purely in relation again to Sydney, to Nev Campbell in
But we
Sydney.
see them game. Randy does nothing but gamify the deaths in Scream and Scream 2. He comes up with rules on how
Yes.
to live, but like they figure out a way to overcome that. Like they don't
Yes.
become beholden to tropes. Sydney every time rises above each trope. I know that like it kind of plays into them in their own kind of cynical ways, but at the same time,
She either rejects them or like plays into them in a way on her own terms. Like on her
exactly.
own terms and able to overcome them. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just find the fact that Alex doesn't do that kind of
No,
interesting in like a
no.
weird chaos way. That like
He tries to 1v1 death in a cabin. Let me get back to my narration here.
that was great. That was a great scene. Yeah.
We're all, I just wanted to say one more thing, just to drive the wedge deeper into Sean William Scott's character, because that little fucking brat, like, I love Devin Sawa saving Kerr Smith from the car. I love that, and I love like how scared he looks all of a sudden. That to me is a save the cat moment for Carter. Finally, like a
Yes.
good thing a character does, and the good thing he does is show humanity. Like, oh shit, I'm not in control. I'm going to
yes,
die. I had a big dick once, but now I don't. I'm gonna die, guys, and like whatever saves them. So everyone's reaction is, "Are you guys okay?" Except for fucking Billy, who is like, "No, you piece of shit, Carter. You're next. Stay away from me, you fuck." Where everyone else is like, "Let's make sure we all live. We're all on the same
yeah,
list."
yeah. You know, I guess he is kind of a brat.
He
I
is.
love that scene though.
I
I
don't
love
know.
that.
I just felt bad for him when he was like almost got run over by Carter.
I
You know.
I guess I just like Justin said, he's like purely solipsistic, and I just find that so funny. He's like completely incapable of processing what's happening. Like Alex, like literally just conquered death, or like conquered God, and he's like, "You guys fucking suck. You're gonna get me killed." And he's
You're right.
like, it's such a chaos moment because Alex is also on like his God complex thing of like, oh, like
Yeah,
he's like
yeah.
connecting
He's
the dots,
basically God. Yeah.
but like that's happening. Sean William Scott is having his tantrum, and
Well,
then the other two are
well,
just like, I just don't want to die.
well.
Like I
Yeah.
just
Well, on that note, I think that's also why it's sort of like postmodernist, because it's like he's like taking God's place in a way, right?
it's
Like,
just he is. It's just
He
funny and
comments on that and says something too, like what, like gods don't die, we die, something weird. I don't forget
oh
what he
yeah, oh
says.
yeah,
yes,
that's
no,
right.
no. I actually like that line. That was a good line. I think actually Carter says that if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm
Oh
No,
yeah,
wrong.
he
that's
Maybe
might
too
I'm
have.
wrong.
poetic. That is way too poetic.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I
For
don't
some
know. I
reason, I
can't
ascribed
remember.
that line to Carter.
He might
Nonetheless,
have.
you get a great kill out of it with Sean William Scott, like having a tantrum about he's not going to die in our plays, and then he.
I love to me, this scene was written in this way. Like, Justin and I even talked about how kind of useless Sean William Scott's character is.
Oh yeah,
But
we were
it,
Oh,
talking about like
entirely,
yeah. Well, we were
entirely.
talking
but
about
it's
like does he even
also,
need to be in it? I don't
but
know
it's
if he even.
also we can have that final. We'll get to the final kill, but like the only reason Carter didn't die there was so he could die 20 minutes later. Like, and we needed to have a death there. So okay, Sean William Scott needed to die. We needed to have that little psych out death. But now we can go to 1v1 in a cabin in the woods. Where Devin
I
Sawa
love
goes
that.
total stan and goes fucking crazy. Oh, tetanus, huh? That's a good one. That's a good
It's.
one.
I was thinking. I was like, this movie just like went off the deep end and went into like Breaking Bad territory where he just goes off the grid and he's like living in a cabin trying to escape punishment for his crimes. And
Yeah,
I'm just like,
but yet it
no.
was still more. Yet it was still more subdued than what you were expecting, right?
Oh no, it's
Like,
great. It's a great scene.
yeah.
That's the point where I was like really getting into the movie because I guess for the first half it was so in line with especially stuff like that Zach and I have been watching recently.
Yeah.
All these like teen '90s horror movies. I mean, it's 2000, but it's very '90s in its sensibilities.
Well,
And
I
it's
think honestly, I think it's always 90s until 9/11. Like that was
yes,
my,
but
you know what I mean? Like,
nonetheless, it's just like that was the point where I'm like, I don't know where this movie is going. Like, I really don't. Like he's in a cabin in the woods, and I don't know what's gonna happen. He's home aloneing it, and it's
He's eating what looks
fascinating.
like cat food, and he's like, you can read his inner monologue of "Hope I don't choke on this." Oh
It
no,
would have
I'm
been really.
stronger.
It would have been funny if like they really just cut to an inner monologue. He's like, "It's been 3 weeks." But that's the vibe it has, and it's a really funny scene, and more than anything because it's completely superfluous. Because he immediately realizes he's not in danger, and so he just leaves.
Yeah, because he mutters to himself, "I didn't switch seats. The game's rigged." And
Yes.
he's got to go save Allie Larter. I do want to bring up one other joke that I did kind of appreciate. We see her like terrible sculptures, and like one's this kind of Jack in the Box
Oh,
looking
yeah.
like thing from hell, and she's like, "This is you," and he goes, "I'm sorry." That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's not you; it's how you make me feel. I'm sorry.
well, what do you make of her character exactly? Since she doesn't
Or going
die.
to her. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like she deifies Alex pretty immediately.
It's a
Um,
weird scene. That scene where he first meets with her in the garage, I thought was super weird. Like
And I
her
think
the
some
vibe she
people
was
deal with
giving.
traumatic experiences by finding some new form of
yeah.
relief.
Well, not
Yes.
just that, but also she notes that she's like she gets thrill out of like doing something she's not supposed to do, right? There's also
Yeah.
there's that element too, and that's kind of like a response to trauma, right?
Yeah.
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 Although I think she was traumatized by reading Henry fucking Miller, though, more than the plane crash.
Jesus Christ.
What was up with that?
Just gonna
Yeah.
read Tropic of Cancer at 5 a.m. in public. You don't fuck with girls like that. That's weird. Yeah, that's my drive-by analysis of Clear Rivers. No, but he goes to save her, and something with like lightning, and like the car is gonna
I
explode.
don't even know what happened.
It literally puts the scene with the teacher to shame. Like it makes the scene with the teacher look like just a completely normal thing to have happen to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he
Oh,
like,
wait.
saves her
I need
by
to say
sacrifice.
something really nice. I want to say something nice about
Yeah.
Allie Larter. I really dug her monologue. She delivered it really well. The part where she's like, my dad got his head blown
Oh
off
yeah,
at
that
a
part was
gas
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
station.
we
that part was
completely
And
great.
glossed
if
over.
if this is Death's plan, if this is God, then, essentially fuck death. Like she nailed it. She fucking nailed it.
Yep.
If there's a best performance in the movie, it's her for that one scene. For sure, she did very well in that scene.
I love Sean William Scott though.
I love Kerr Smith too, but I can't give him the title for just
No.
one noting it. Like,
Maybe you
that was
can.
that was a good monologue. That was a very good monologue.
No, Allie Larter's great. I'm actually a fan of her from
I was about to
Resident
bring
Evil
up,
movies.
yeah,
Yeah, she's in the Resident Evil movies.
she's got that bizarre attraction. She was one of the first it girls of the 2000s, like this and
Mm.
Heroes, House on Haunted Hill and shit. And I'm glad she was
Right.
in the Resident Evil movies because she's like attractive in the same way that Mila is, which is in like a weird kind of way you can't exactly like pinpoint.
It's
Mhm.
great by like the last one where it's just her and Mila, and they're the two most dominating characters in the movie, and it's great. She has a good vibe in those movies. She's really,
Good for
really
Allie. Good for
charismatic.
Allie. But
Nonetheless, her
Devin Sawa saves
nonsensical,
her.
yeah, her nonsensical death or attempted death.
Yep.
It's
Alex saves her, and then
Well,
yeah,
there's a little bit of like a death fake out for Alex also, where it's like,
Yeah, it
like
is.
the cops are like he's not breathing, and then it cuts
Oh,
like,
yeah,
a couple
yeah.
years later. It's a couple years later, and suddenly you just see him there too. I'm like, oh, okay,
mhm, and she's blonde now.
yeah.
to go back to her house though, because I want to talk a little bit about the house and how it Rube Goldberg's to hell and back.
It really does.
It's
And by the way,
it's
just practically, like, does she live she lived there by herself because she
I
said
don't
her
know.
parents abandoned her, her dad's dead, and her mom moved away. Like, that's a pretty nice house. That's all I'm saying.
It's
All I'm
so
saying.
weird. God, it's so fucking wild that entire thing. I guess what it is that like I said, I was worried because there has to be a conclusion. I was expecting, just per the rules of this era of the genre, there was going to be some kind of explosive finale, and so I thought it was going to be some giant dark fog monster that was going to try and kill Alex, and he was going to kill it by believing in true love or something. That's what I was expecting. Instead, it was they blow up the house, and it turns into like the end of Suspiria, where the entire house is just combusting in on itself in the most chaotic ways. Like
Yeah.
it's every worst possible thing that could happen happens. It's so fun.
I do like Devin Sawa having to say these lines. Okay, I'm gonna get you out of there, all right? The tires are grounding you, so you won't get electrocuted. Oh shit, the car's gonna explode now.
The part that got me was that there's a giant electric whip snapping back and forth in her backyard, and she's like trying to save her dog from it for like a few minutes. She's trying to get her dog away from it, and the dog just won't fucking move. I'm like, just walk away.
Whatever. I was happy that dog lived,
Me
presumably.
too, but it was just so funny that like she's almost like letting herself get whipped. The pool collapses, and there's a giant electric wire snapping around, and she's just trying to wrangle her dog. And this is the big finale of your movie.
Ah,
I like that though.
I do too. It's chaos.
Yeah.
It's the only way it could have gone at that point, because
yeah.
every death up until that point was like a slow ramping of, again, like Rube Goldberg mechanics for causing deaths. So naturally, you have to go to this place where it's incomprehensible to a ludicrous degree. It's ridiculous, and I loved it. It was so
Now,
funny.
I absolutely love the ending of the movie. I love. It's actually
For the very ending, yeah.
just like Urban Legend had a few of my favorite like final, or not final deaths, but death scenes. I do like Carter's death scene in this a lot, especially that we don't even see it. But this was good shit. This was good shit at the table and figuring out that, like, one more comment, because he hears like the John Denver song being played in French. Like, they had a music budget, but they couldn't buy like the one fucking John Denver song everyone knows. They had to buy like his B-sides or some shit. Like, I didn't hear Country Roads Take Me Home once. I just want to put that out there. That's weird. And then move on from that point, because it's highly superficial, but still it irritated me. Because we heard like 6 John Denver songs because he died in a plane crash. But they realize the death thing is still going on, and that Devin Sawa is still next. And then like Carter does like the nicest thing he does in the whole fucking movie, which is like, I don't mean to minimize it, he saves Devin Sawa's life. He like pushes him out of the way from this sign that's just gonna just crush him. And I love this moment. It's one of my favorite moments in the teen slasher movies of this era. They're like the final like 30 seconds of them like looking at each other like, I just saved your life. You're next. No, it just skipped me. Then who's next? And then like the sound editing and the way he looks almost to camera, as like right as the sign hits his back, it cuts to black, and it's fucking gets me so amped. That's fucking hard. That's great.
Well, yeah, especially right after they just got done talking about like if they actually control their destiny or not, and then you have like that last moment.
And then Carter does more of those lines that I love, of like, doesn't matter because I'm the safest motherfucker in the world because you're next.
Oh, I loved that. I loved that. Like, as long as Alex doesn't die, he's like invincible.
Yeah.
That is an interesting like thing, actually, to think about. Like the idea that Alex is next on the list, so he literally cannot die, Carter, no matter what. Like, nothing can kill him. That's super funny to think about.
It's a fucking great scene. I loved it. I mean, if you had any wonders about why Carter got out of that car on the tracks, it was so this scene could play out the way that it did.
The finale, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking it's pretty weird that he survives. I wasn't expecting that, but
neither were they. And then they were told, all these movies have a final scare.
Yeah, so Alex can have that God complex. Like, I think that's a big part of it. Like,
yeah, and that's what I love about Alex, is his God complex.
But then it's like, well, how do you know that you're actually cheating destiny? What if this actually just is destiny? And then it's like, yeah, you got a point.
God, so like the only final boy from this fucking period of horror movies is a little god. Okay.
Yeah, who looks
Great.
again like Eminem, and
Well,
he's great. I love
No,
his
he
whole
is great.
collection of plane crash books that he collected over the course of a month. I don't know
Yeah.
if you caught that.
yeah,
Yep.
that was just plain crazy.
I like that he's like, well, enough of bring out the penthouse. Hell yeah. But he can't get into it, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously PTSD does that to people, but then he throws the book and gets the Todd name. So there's that dirty magazine reference. But I love the ending of this movie. I think it's really good. Of course, Devon Sawa did not elect to appear in the sequel, and they write his character off like rather ungloriously off screen, saying that a loose brick fell on his head.
Wait, really? I was just under
Yeah.
the impression that like they were all self-contained. I haven't seen the
No,
sequels.
Allie's a number two.
Really?
Yeah, Allie Larter
Man,
comes back and she's like, "Yeah, a brick fell on Alex's head."
that's actually kind of fucking hilarious. Uh, I don't want Alex to die any
jeez.
other way. I really don't. I want that to be his fate.
But the thing is, with two, it's a car crash, and all these other people dealing with their own
Right.
list and game. Meanwhile, Allie Larter is dodging shit left and right because she's the only person left in hers. Like, it's kind of bonkers.
Oh, is that the conceit? Is that like she's
Yeah,
constantly almost
yeah,
dying?
yes.
Oh, that's
This,
great. I like that.
but it focuses a lot on these new people from a car crash, and the third one's like a roller coaster ride gone awry.
I think I knew about that. I think the third one might be the one that I'd like heard about or maybe seen clips of on TV as a kid. I'm
The
not
third
sure.
one gets a lot of love, and like maybe it should get some love, but I don't think it's like
Same
Final
director.
Destination to
Yeah.
me is actually like commenting on certain things that were going on at the time,
Well,
Right.
yeah,
and
that's
valuable or
just the
not, it
thing.
is commenting on it. It is trying to be relevant,
That's
and I
just the
think it
thing of this
was.
era is
What
that like
do, what do you think it's also like sensationalizing it?
Yeah, but
it's
I think a
both.
horror movie almost has to. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
this era of horror was both. I don't know if that's necessarily the case right now, but definitely like 90s into the 2000s for sure. For
Hmm.
sure,
Oh,
it
I
was.
think that's the case now for
It
sure.
depends. It depends, I guess. But definitely like, well, because in the 90s and 2000s, you had literal plane crash movies or kids like shooting their teachers movies. So
That's all. Yeah, it's all before it
Yeah.
though. It's all before the events that like happened later. That's what makes them weird. Like,
yeah, it's weird and in such a specific way because like it's on the one hand there's I don't want to say camp quality, but an ironic quality to 90s horror in
Well,
that
yeah.
they're very
Well,
self-referential, but they're also brutal as fuck, or like they go on subject matter that's really fucked up.
irony is a facet of postmodernism. You don't have
It's
postmodernism without it.
it's like movies that that you would be willing to show, say, like a 13-year-old today, but wouldn't get made today.
Yeah,
It's weird. It's
yeah,
weird.
Jacob. Like, keep in mind that like the faculty, Josh Hartnett with a group of friends quoting sci-fi movies and shooting their principal in the face happens before Columbine.
Yeah,
Like, that's
it's
fucking
it's
crazy.
it's
And
so
same with this
weird.
one happening before 9/11.
It's such a weird like that'll this type of movie will never happen again.
No, no,
Just
it won't.
totally
Um,
detached from the consequences of what it's showing to well to varying degrees, but
that's when we get like the Williamson penmanship. I feel like he has a good tone. Like he knows what he's
yeah,
doing with the tone.
yeah.
Um, some of the other ones not so much, but Final Destination's it's still a good one. It's a decent concept, especially if you are deliberately trying to move away from some of the more problematic tropes of Kevin Williamson style.
Yes, yes, I
And like
agree.
this is a really good concept to move away from it with. Is like, you know what, fuck it, we'll just get rid of you seeing the killer at all, you know, and we won't be full of pop culture
get rid
references.
of
We'll
the
be a little bit
killer.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there still are those references. I mean,
In
but
a in a
In the
roundabout way.
names, I guess. Yeah.
oh, in the
Yes.
names, yeah. I mean, then
But
also you have Candyman there. So
Also just in the
yeah, but
sense
it's
that there's
not
still like a set of rules that the characters become
right,
privy to over the
right.
course.
true. But when I say like pop culture references, there's not a single scene of Williamson without one, like direct
Yes,
one.
yes,
Right,
yes.
they're not talking about like the movie Scream or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Within Scream 2. Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not doing that. Oh my God, Final Destination. That's good shit. It's fine. What
Yeah,
did you guys think of it overall?
it gave me a nightmare,
Oh, I
actually.
want to hear about it.
um
Jacob and I want to hear this nightmare.
yeah, okay, I'm trying to piece it all together, but like basically and just so you know, like I don't usually get nightmares when watching movies. I just saw this at like until like 3 a.m. and I went to sleep right afterwards. And then suddenly I just start questioning things about my own destiny within my dream. Like, am I like in my dream? It's like almost metatextual. I'm like watching like I'm like watching like a movie, but then like it happens like it's real. Like I'm actually the character in the movie, and I have to, and I know that I'm going to die. And I went to this beach, and there's these people from like a cult that are like that put a hex on me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Final Destination is real life now. Yeah. But then I just accepted it. In the end, I'm like, this is beautiful. Death is a beautiful thing. That's what my movie's thesis is. And and then I woke up, I'm like, wow, that was a trip.
Yeah, and in the comments, I was wondering this, because I've seen the first three and like half of the fourth Final Destination. I know there's 5 of them. Has there ever been a character who was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm comfortable with death. I'm just gonna sit here, let it happen. Like, has that happened? Because that would be kind of interesting.
It happens in my head canon, obviously. So
True. I mean, you could have created Final Destination 6.
I guess that happens just because in most horror movies, or at least most slasher movies, I would say, there is no escape for the characters at any point, but there's no way for them to know that. They would only know that if they knew they were in a horror movie, which fair enough happened. But this is like where they understand their rules that determine they are absolutely going to die, which you don't usually get in a slasher movie. Because like sure, like Michael Myers is supposed to be a deific force of nature, but they don't know that. They don't know that. Like people he's killing. So no, that's interesting that he's like, no, I'm just gonna take it.
Yeah, that happens in action movies a lot more. I can think of a lot of action movie parts where like the henchman is like jumping through all this shit and just goes, okay, you know what? Fine, and then he just gets shot. Like I can think of that happening a lot more within that tone, for sure.
Or the ending of The Departed, something like that.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Matt Damon walking in, going, okay, fine. You know what? I just want that to happen in a horror movie. You know what? Fine. I'm done.
Just sees the Leatherface and it's like, oh, fuck me. It's.
I mean, go for it.
I mean, in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Laurie Strode kind of embraces death in a way. Wouldn't you say that, Jacob?
Yeah, it's not in. It's in a incredibly sad way, not a very enjoyable in any way. It's incredibly heartbreaking to watch, but it's technically, yes, it happens. Yeah.
It definitely had to have happened through like one of 7 Saw movies. There had to be one character who was like, you know what, I'm not gonna win this game.
You know what? I don't want to play this game. I just want to die.
There had to have been one. It was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna die.
On the opposite side, I respect that we have a lead who says, not only am I not going to die, I'm never going to die.
That's my favorite line. I'm never going to die.
Well, he says that, but that becomes like the mentality Alex adopts by like the end.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to fucking die. It's great. It's great.
It's never going to die. That's the part that really kills it. I love it. Carter was awesome.
He is. Alex becomes new Carter once Carter stops being.
Yeah. In some ways, I'm not entirely sure about all the writing decisions when it came to that, because it did kind of seem like they switched characters eventually.
Only in the sense that it felt like Carter finally recognized that he's in a situation out of his control, and like in a way, Carter's the only character.
Not really, because
I don't know. I feel like Carter's the only character that matures.
Carter realizes that he's actually not in control, but Alex realizes that he is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That I'm
that's
leaning more towards
weird.
that.
It's
I'm leaning more
weird.
towards Carter. Like realized, oh shit, Adam's a fucking warlock.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
I
gonna divert all thought to him for a second.
He has superpowers. It's a
He does
superhero
call him a
movie.
warlock right after he saves his life. He goes, "Holy shit, are you a fucking warlock?"
and, Sh- and Sean William Scott. It's
I
just
I do feel like Carter's the only character who like comes out with any like personal or moral development as a
Yeah, he
person.
does.
Like
He does.
he's the only person that like becomes better from the experience, whereas everyone else seems to become worse.
Well, it speaks to you guys like talking about, especially Jacob, talking about how Alex doesn't really seem to care about his friends at a certain point. There's
He
not a
doesn't.
point that I don't think that Carter's thinking about Terry, his girlfriend, for the little amount of screen time he has. He's still like thinking about her, trying to etch her
yeah.
name into shit. Todd kills himself. Like, what we're led to believe is definitely Alex's best friend, and his initial reaction is like,
Well, he doesn't
shit,
actually.
it's a game. It's not like, he doesn't really mourn for Todd, in
Yeah.
my opinion, at
Which to
all.
be
He's
fair
like,
is
why would he
not
kill
like
himself?
I
Yeah.
guess that you could say that's more Alex's coping thing though, because I'm willing to accept that in the case of Todd because he's in a situation that's
Well,
incredibly unbelievable, and so he kind of fixates on that to cope, but then he takes it so far that he
But it
really
is
just
wild. Like, dude, you and I
stops.
did Urban Legend, and Natalie, fucking Damon dies second, and Natalie cries about it. Like, and he was
Yeah.
a huge piece of shit. Alex
Oh,
doesn't
she
shed a
hated him, and
single
she
tear.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Damon, nice guy, her to death almost.
he sheds a tear about the whole plane, though, but not his friend. I don't think.
Yeah. He
He's a weird character.
I
I kind of
like
I kind
Alex.
of
Yeah.
I like that about him. Like he just kind of becomes like humanity's like replacement for God in a way. That's kind of how
It's
I interpret him.
it just felt like that's all he
But
has left.
Yeah.
Like yeah, either he has to like fixate on the situation and figure it out and find the solution to the problem, or he has to like deal with the bad things that happen to him, and he doesn't want to do that. So he
That's
just
right.
exactly, yeah, the coping mechanism for sure for Alex.
but
It
it
still, it still distances himself from his emotions.
yeah.
None of them are handling this healthy, and I think that's what we're talking about. At the end, Carter seems half healthy. Like he seems
Yeah,
in good
that's why I like him.
spirits, and he's like, "Don't worry about it." He's made friends with these guys. They have a little like survivors table. They're happy,
Yeah.
and
They make it to
and,
France.
and then Carter would not have
Yeah.
saved fucking Carter would not have saved his life earlier in the movie either.
No,
I
no.
doubt it. That was like payback for like, you saved mine, but I love that fucking death, dude. I love the sign coming down behind him, and the sign is all fucking grody and weird looking, and you just imagine the visceral impact of it. It's pretty great. Pretty great. What else are we talking about?
God, I don't know. We've talked about so much about Final Destination.
um anybody throw something out there.
Oh, I know. When Sean Williams, I always write down like stuff that stands out to me, and I wrote down a bunch of Sean William Scott's quotes. My favorite one was when they're in the car going down the highway. And he says, "Dude, just tell me if I'm gonna see the Jets win the Super Bowl."
Yeah, dude, but that adds,
Billy
not only is it a
Hitchcock.
fucking plane crash, dude, it's a plane crash with kids from New York. Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck was this?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they didn't predict 9/11 technically, but they kind of did.
Oh god, if I was like a lesser YouTuber. Final Destination predicted 9/11 question mark would be pretty clickable, but I'm not doing that. But I'm
No,
letting
just
you all
put
know
it.
that I thought of it.
I can make a thumbnail. I can do that.
We should do that. Let's
do,
I
do that
I
that yellow text
constantly
I used to use. Yeah.
I constantly, if you've ever seen Zach's like thumbnails with like the "Are we the urban legend?" That's always me. I said like, "Can you do that for
Well,
me?"
well, isn't
to copy
well,
Justin.
well, I don't even. I'm actually like kind of retiring like some of my old
Oh,
thumbnails where
that's
I'm just
tragic.
like. I'm keeping the LOL one with next to Jeremy Irons' face though. I can't
That was
not
that's a
keep
good
that
one.
one. I can't not keep that one. And also, men are pigs, men are weak. I'm keeping those. But yeah, I noticed that We should do that with this one too.
Oh yeah, and when you're editing this, don't edit this part out. I want them to
Oh, of
listen
course.
to us talk about the thumbnail. I want this to be a meta video.
Another
Like,
thing I like about the movie, by the way, is the whole opening.
yeah,
How it kind
and
of
it's like a
teaches you the
20-minute
rules.
opening.
And it does a good job of teaching you the rules of like it's going to be really like random insignificant minutia that kills these people, and they show you that by Alex freaking out on and fixating on different small things that catch his
Yeah,
eye that aren't actually threatening, but the way it's shot makes it appear threatening to him, and then kind of teaches you to look for that because that's how the kills are going to happen, which I think is interesting.
it was
But
pretty clever.
also
It's
the
got that
thumbnails.
like, yeah. I don't know. It's got that weird like Tony Hawk thing. Playing it as a kid, you'd be in the car and be looking out the window and you'd imagine just all these long grinds. Am I showing my age at all? You just do all these long grinds.
What's a skateboard? What?
Exactly. But the setup for these kills, like you look around your room and you're like, well, if that book fell on that and that and then that, it gets a bit creative in your mind. It's fun. It's one of those. I remember doing that when I was a kid. Just sharing some inner thoughts. I'm running out of material. I am running
That's
out of
okay.
material.
It's okay. It predicted 9/11. There we go.
It did do that. But I'm talking about more important things like Tony Hawk and whether or not you can infinite grind. But now, Final Destination was good. Not enough Offspring. I'm going to say that. Um, let's see.
It was
In
fun.
in the sense of like sequels, or in the sense of stuff pulling from Final Destination.
Offspring, the
Oh,
band.
I thought you meant
No,
we
this.
literally had like a 15-minute conversation about Offspring in the
Yeah.
faculty video, and then like a month later you say Offspring and I say who?
That's exactly what happened, and that's a little prize for anyone like doing the endurance test of listening this far in. But I want to thank you guys for being here and talking
Of
about
course.
Final Destination. Of course, Jacob will be coming back, talking about more, hopefully more horror slasher movies, or he might, you know, pick another fucking
Channel.
what is.
Hey, I'm right here.
No, another fucking what's that subgenre called that
Oh,
we just did?
Wuxia.
Yeah,
Wuxia. Sui Hark. Yeah.
then you can find another channel. Then I think Justin will help you. But for now, though, yeah, this was a good conversation. I think I had fun, and I think we provided some good insight on these characters. Maybe even like needlessly good insight on these characters. But thanks for listening.